Well, hi Mom, it's me, your son. Look, I know, it's a little bit early, like approximately 222 days before Halloween Horror Fest FrippTricky 2023 is even scheduled to begin early. I mean, even Mr. Bones isn't here. That's fine, I'm sure he's hanging around. But you see, the thing is, every year on February 22nd, without fail, I always find myself kind of drifting back into the Halloween ritual, suckered by the siren song of the spooky season like a scarecrow scolding, only I'm its weird, balding cattle. I've been in hibernation since Halloween, which is evident by my winter's weight and my terribly unkempt face. Also, I think I have pink eye. Could it be because my son's in daycare? Or am I just a terrible wipe? Who knows? But if I am anything, I am a glutton for punishment, as well as addicted to getting attention from statistically no one. So for today, Wednesday, February 22nd, 2023, for this year's 222 holiday celebration, I figure, why not go for one more episode of Weird Wednesday?
In this house.
Skinamarink is the 2022 Film Festival darling and feature-length directorial debut of Kyle Edward Ball, a YouTuber responsible for the channel Bite-Sized Nightmares, which, if I'm gonna be honest, missed the opportunity to go for the much better name Bite-Mares? So, whatever. Points for creativity, I guess. If you've spent any amount of time on TikTok lately, well, I'm sorry, I failed you. We all failed you. But while zoning out during that numbing ritual, it's pretty likely that you've stumbled across someone talking about this here Skinamarink. And those online who talk about Skinamarink generally fall into one of two camps. Either they praise Skinamarink as the future of horror, calling it the scariest movie that's ever been made, or they despise it, likening it to watching paint dry, only hoping that the paint has lead so that you can nibble on paint chips and hope that you succumb to the sweet release of death in less than an hour and 40 minutes. But what about you, dear viewer? Mom, what should I think about Skinamarink, you may ask? And so you come to me, a white guy on the internet, to give you the final say on whether Skinamarink is good. Are the masses right? Is this the scariest movie ever made? Scarier even than that scene from E.T., a movie I've heard described as made for kids? A movie for children? Where he's all white and yucky and drowned at the bottom of a river basin, only to then rise again and feed off of Elliot's emotional instability so he can hitch a ride home like some kind of criminal space pervert? Or is it the worst movie ever made? Worse even than that scene from E.T. where Gertie dresses him up like a girl and puts a wig and a dress on him, and then he crawls out of the TV and he points at you and he says in a slow, steady voice, he's gonna marry you and you're gonna marry him? Worse than that scene? No, it's not. It's neither of those very broad, objective, and certainly universal opinions about E.T. the extraterrestrial. It's not the best of the best or the worst of the worst. It's just Skinamarink. But what, pray tell, is a Skinamarink? Well, let's start with what it's not. Skinamarink is not a movie. Without a fully cognizable narrative, and not even a single cameo by Kevin Hart, Skinamarink barely passes as a motion picture. So what is Skinamarink, if not just a word that I've said 11 times so far in this video? I submit to you that Skinamarink is not a movie, but is instead a machine designed to induce nightmares. To support this hypothesis, we're going to need to go back and look at Kyle Ball's earlier work. Since 2018, Kyle's been uploading videos to his YouTube channel, Bite-Sized Nightmares, which, again, I know, it's a stupid name. Each titled as individually numbered nightmares, the videos act as artistic recreations of nightmare themes, tropes, and scenes taken from comments that are left by viewers on YouTube. Videos like Nightmare 33, Farmer's Field, or Nightmare 23, Mirror, are based on a commenter's recollection of one of the scariest dreams they've ever had, and then turned into some kind of shared visual experience. Even going so far as using the original comment as a script for narration to support the visuals. But like real dreams, they're rarely tied together through any kind of cognizable visual or narrative through line, and instead serve as kind of atmospheric mood pieces meant to evoke a certain vibe, a dreamlike state. So, for example, in a video about a nightmare called, I don't know, Grin, rather than get a full-blown narrative piece in 3 acts, you get something like this. Nothing more with. And then I do something like this. Bite-sized nightmares is to movies as binaural beats is to music. Not really meant to communicate anything, but to encourage a response, whether physical, mental, or emotional. Most of the nightmares on Kyle's channel are pretty short, clocking in between 4 to 6 minutes on average. Just enough to get a taste of a specific vibe. Kinda like getting a kiss from Papa John himself rather than eating an actual pizza. This all changed, however, in 2021 with the release of Heck, a 28-minute short film that Kyle released on his Bite-Sized Nightmares channel. Acting as a kind of concept trailer for what would ultimately become Skinamarink, Heck allowed audiences to sit in an artificial nightmare long enough for it to feel somehow more real and invasive than the previous bite-sized chunks. The hot take alert. Half an hour is really as long as this thing ever really needed to be. But nonetheless, Kyle felt compelled to stretch the concept a little further. Hence, Skinamarink. At its core, as far as I can tell, Skinamarink is meant to be a faithful recreation of an actual nightmare. But therein lies the problem. As a person who's ever spent time in a room with another person, you know as well as I do that there's almost nothing stronger than the immediate need to tell someone about the bonk-ass dream that you had the night before. But, on the other hand, as a person who's ever spent time in a room with another person, you know as well as I do that there's almost nothing stronger than the immediate need to leave a conversation as soon as someone wants to tell you about the bonk-ass dream they had the night before. It sucks, and nobody enjoys it. No. I know you had a dream where you were stuck playing basketball with the Fry Guys from McDonald Land, and then one of your friends from 4th grade wants to show you the time portal they found in a washing machine. I know that it must have felt so real and totally meant something, but I don't care. No one cares. And if you try to tell me about your dream, I'm gonna put you in a house with no windows or doors, and I'm gonna leave you there until you introduce your eye to whatever sharp instrument you have laying around. In sum, Skinamarink's kind of a hard sell, conceptually. But now that I've given you the who, the where, the when, and the why of Skinamarink, I suppose it's only fair to tell you what Skinamarink is actually about. I don't really know how to talk about the things that happen in Skinamarink to the extent that anything happens in Skinamarink without spoiling it. So if you just want my final thoughts and you don't want to hear any specific details, feel free to skip to this time code. For those of you that are still here, I regret to inform you that, as far as I can tell, Skinamarink's not really about anything, like at all. That's not to say that things don't happen, just that a course of events through cause and effect and an ultimate payoff and meaning just isn't really there. But that's because it's a nightmare. In the nightmare, there are 2 kids, 4-year-old Kevin and his 6-year-old sister, Kaylee. It's 1995, and things happen to these kids. Kevin and Kaylee wake up in the middle of the night to find that their parents are gone, and the doors and windows to the house are also gone, or are currently going. Also, the toilet. Trapped seemingly alone in this dark house, the 2 kids decide to sleep downstairs in front of the TV, using its glow and its outpouring of old cartoons as a kind of nightlight and security blanket. As the siblings comfort one another in front of the TV, the passage of time and the laws of physics seem to blur, and the house they thought they were alone in reveals itself to perhaps be a little bit more inhabited than originally thought. Sounds kind of cool, right? I mean, at least watchable. It's got characters, stuff that happens, dialogue. Yeah, it's got those things, but it's also presented like this. So outside of, I don't know, maybe 7 shots, the vast majority of Skinamarink is communicated to the viewer through a series of obscure camera angles, various walls, dark corners, hallways, all under a filter that makes the whole thing look somewhere between 8mm film and those weird squiggles you get when you rub your eyes like this. God. These long, dark scenes don't really tell a story as much as suggest a mood that kind of story would impart. As far as show don't tell goes, Skinamarink does neither and just kind of gives. Spooky. But if Skinamarink is supposed to be a nightmare, we're faced with two questions. First of all, whose nightmare is it? We've got a few candidates here. Maybe it's Kevin's nightmare. Possibly, seeing that he's kind of the focus for most of the runtime. But maybe it's Kaylee's, seeing that significant scenes are shown through what appears to be her first-person perspective. Maybe it's one of the parents? I don't know. Probably not, though. Each one of these options lacks an essential criterion, making none of them really a surefire choice. None of these characters are present for the entire dream. Not Kevin, not Kaylee, not the parents. No one experiences the nightmare from start to finish. No one except for you. You, the viewer, are the only one to see all of the events, if they can be called events, and from all perspectives. And at the end of the nightmare, when this terrible face looks at the screen, it asks you what your name is. It doesn't need to ask for Kevin or Kaylee's names because it's been saying their names throughout the entire nightmare. It knows their names. It knows who they are, but it wants to know who you are. It wants to know your name, the name of the person whose dreams it's now going to try to invade. This is further supported by the fact that this awful face tells you to go to sleep, as if trying to trick you into letting your guard down long enough for it to sneak into your dreams and turn them forever into nightmares. So in that way, Skinamarink isn't just a nightmare, it's your nightmare. And the second question raised is, what does the nightmare mean? I mean, it's a fair question, right? Common sense and basic psychology suggests that dreams have a purpose at a biological or instinctual level. Maybe a dream is a way of your brain making sense of an uncertain situation that you find yourself in the waking world. Maybe it's the manifestation of some deep-seated anxiety that's bubbling up to the surface of your subconscious. As for what the Skinamarink nightmare is, well, there's a couple of theories out there, ranging from brain trauma to child abuse. But if we stick with the presumption that this is supposed to be your nightmare, the viewer's nightmare, then the nightmare only has meaning insofar as there is something going on in the viewer's life, something you've experienced or you're trying to process, that gives it meaning, makes it scary. So when someone asks you, what's the meaning of Skinamarink? Well, the only appropriate answer is, you tell me. It goes without saying that Skinamarink isn't for everyone. If you're one of those who leaves at Skinamarink feeling bored, confused, or frustrated, then ultimately it was a kind of dream. A collection of images and sounds and sensations without any particular weight or rhyme or reason that just happens and then fades away, then you're probably in a pretty good, if not at least unremarkable, place in your life. But for others, those who might be riddled with trauma or anxiety, those who find themselves locked in their basement at 3 o'clock in the morning, procrastinating sleep for fear of seeing the sun or, God forbid, another human being, then Skinamarink is a nightmare, your nightmare, about your weird, broken life. Again, Skinamarink is not a movie. It's more of a therapeutic tool, a sort of litmus test to gauge where you're at emotionally, psychologically. If you watch it and you're not scared, that's good. I'm happy for you, bud. But if it does scare you, you doing okay? You want to talk about it? So, did I enjoy Skinamarink? I don't know. Do you enjoy having your teeth fall out? Do you enjoy finding out that you've got a final in a class that you never knew you were taking in the first place? And for some reason, you're naked, just hanging brain at a facsimile of your alma mater student union building? Do you enjoy this specific picture of Sonic the Hedgehog devoting his life to Jesus Christ? I don't think you can. I don't think you even want to. I don't think you want to enjoy Sonic and his stinky feet munching down on a communion wafer like it's the antidote to sadness. And that's because Skinamarink is not meant to be enjoyed, only experienced and then processed. With its analog filtered look into dark corners and vaguely human faces, Skinamarink doesn't communicate much of anything, if it even communicates anything at all. At least, not intentionally. Skinamarink is a means by which images are transmitted directly to your lizard brain, which then desperately works overtime to try to turn this cacophony of noise into a symphony of meaning. But rather than Mahler or Holst, you end up with Krzysztof Penderecki. Make sense? But what makes Skinamarink effective is where intention stops and extension begins. It's best to go into Skinamarink without any intention of watching a scary movie. I would posit that the intention lies with Kyle Ball and his intention to compile sounds and visuals with the end goal of getting you to meet and confer with yourself. God, this one's long, sorry. At the end of the day, Skinamarink doesn't really succeed as a movie. For that reason, I really can't give it more than a 5 out of 10. Maybe even a 4. That's not to say that Skinamarink isn't good. Far from it. Skinamarink is very, very good at being a nightmare for a very specific kind of person. Hell, I watched Skinamarink only once, but I continued to experience it that night when I went to sleep. My own nightmares playing as sequels night after night after night. So I don't think I can call it just a horror movie, or analog horror, or elevated horror, whatever that means. I propose that we carve out a specific subgenre just for Skinamarink. A subgenre I've decided to call subjective horror. There is no objective experience of Skinamarink, only a viewer's own personal subjective experience. Whether you take anything away from it is entirely up to you. So I don't really think I can recommend Skinamarink to anyone, judging by how subjective its limited appeal is. But if any of this sounds interesting to you, it's streaming on Shudder, so go watch it, you weirdo. Truth be told, I secretly do kind of hope that Skinamarink starts this new trend in horror so that David Zucker will be forced to come out of retirement just to make a spoof of it, and it would have a really good and really smart name like Skidmark-a-Stink. Anyway, that's it. That's what I made this video for. But now it is time for me to slink back into slumber until October 1st, when Halloween Horror Fest Spooktacular returns for 2023. Or, you know, unless I feel like posting something before then. Maybe not. I mean, I did watch other movies after Halloween. I watched Smile. Okay, a bonus review. You want to know what I know? You want to know what I thought about 2022 Smile, directed by Parker Finn? Here it is. But I don't know what I thought about Smile. It was not very good.